If you want your Facebook ads to actually work, you have to get your targeting right. That means knowing exactly who to show your ads to, since Facebook gives you several powerful targeting options to make that happen. In this video, I'll show you the different types of Facebook ad audiences, show you how to create each one, and explain how to use them to get the best possible results. Hey everyone, it's Axel here, and today I'm going to show you the different types of audiences you can use within Facebook ads. So for this video, it's crucial that you already have your pixel set up correctly, so I'm just going to assume that you have that done. But if you don't, feel free to watch my recent video on the Facebook pixel. I'll put the description in the link below. So on Facebook, an audience is a group of people that you can show ads to. And this allows you to segment your targeting by showing different ads to different groups of people. As a note, today I'm going to talk about 6 different audiences, and all of these are going to be used within the ad set level. So by this, what I mean is when you build a campaign in Facebook, you have 3 different levels. You have the campaign level, which is where you set your goals. You have the ad set level, which is where you set your targeting and your different placements. And then you have your ad level, which is where the creatives, the copy, and the call to action happen. For this video specifically, everything we're gonna do is gonna be specifically in the ad set level. So the first audience size I'm gonna talk about is broad targeting, which is also known as open targeting. And this is the simplest type of targeting. You're pretty much telling Facebook, here's a location to show my ads to, and you take care of the rest. So you're not layering in any interest or retargeting or demographics or anything of the kind. You're just letting the algorithm do its thing. Here's how to set this up. When you're building an ad set, scroll down to your audience section. This is where we're going to attach and target our target audiences for the rest of this video. For a broad audience, all you have to do is you just have to start by selecting a location. So let's say I'm running ads in the US. What I would do is I would search up the United States like this, select it. Now it's targeting the US. And when it comes to the rest, I just don't touch it and I just leave it as it is. That's all I have to do. And so there's a few reasons why you would want to try this type of targeting to start your ads with. The first one is for testing reasons. So if you have a group of different creatives you want to run as ads to your landing page, running them on an open targeted audience like this is great. Because if it works well for this type of open targeting, the chances are that it works well on a narrower type of targeting are higher. This type of targeting is also great for scaling. So this is the biggest type of audience you can target within Facebook, as you don't have any restrictions on your audience. And this is great because if your ads do work, it's the easiest one to scale because it's the one you can spend the most money on. And then also this type of audience often results in a lower CPM. Due to the fact that you're being open with your targeting, Facebook often rewards you with a lower CPM. And this is actually pretty good because sometimes, even though your CTR and your conversion rates might be lower, since you have a lower CPM, the end cost per result on a targeting ad group like this might be similar, if not better than your other ad groups. So it's always worth testing. So that's pretty much all there is to cold targeting. It's super easy to set up and it's a great place to start. If you're looking for a place to target and just test new creatives and potentially have a big ad group that's ready to scale down the line, this is the best option to start with. Now moving on to the second type of audience, which is demographics. So this is very similar to open targeting, but with one extra layer added to it. So a demographic is a specific attribute that is tied to a specific group of people. And in Facebook ads, this usually means age, gender, or languages spoken. To set this up, it's the exact same thing as a broad targeting ad group. All you have to do is set up a location, and then from there you can tweak the rest. So you can see I have my age right here, my gender is right here, my language is spoken. So you want to test one of these when you're confident that your audience falls into a specific type of group. Keep in mind, ideally you want to be testing this after you've ran ads on a broad audience first. So as an example for age, let's say you're selling retirement plans, it would kind of make sense to be targeting people who are aged 50 plus and not targeting someone who's 18 years old, right? So something you could do is make a test for that. So the way I could do that is click this pencil icon right here and select 50 as my minimum right here. And then as my maximum, I could scroll down and click 65 plus. That way my ads are only shown to people who are 50 years or older. This would be a good test because you are assuming that an older audience or an older demographic is more likely to convert. Same thing applies for gender. So let's say you're selling women's shoes. It's a logical step to test your ads to see if they perform better by showing your ads only to women. So what I could do in a case like that is select my pencil right here and make sure it's selected to just women and run a test like that. But this is why you want to keep the broad targeting in mind. And that's because in this example, men can also buy women's shoes as a gift. So it doesn't mean that you're targeting only women that your campaign is necessarily going to perform better, which is why you want to test it on a broad campaign or a broad ad group targeting setting before you try this. Finally, the languages one, you want to try this when your ad is written in a specific language and the service you provide is specifically tied to that language. For example, if you're a local plumber and you just want to work with clients and generate new leads and you can only speak English, then it kind of makes makes sense that the clients you attract also speak English as a language, as a barrier, right? So the way you would want to set that up is click this pencil icon down here and then make sure that English is selected as the language. That way whoever sees the ad will speak that. So that's all there is to demographics. All it does is it adds an extra layer of control that you have over your ads. But as a reminder, I suggest that you often try most of this stuff as a broad campaign first, like the first part of this video, before you go ahead and test these ones out. Moving on now to our third type of targeting, which is interest targeting, and this is where things start to get powerful. So because of the Facebook pixel, user tracking, and the fact that everyone needs an account to use Facebook or Instagram in the first place, what happens is that Facebook ends up knowing a lot about its users. So like I mentioned previously, they know your age, your gender, and your location, as well as the languages you speak. But because of this, they also know what you do for work, what you do for fun, what you recently purchased, and what type of content you engaged with. And that's where interest targeting comes in. Facebook can essentially take this data and group people into buckets of different interests. And that's the main difference between demographics targeting and interest targeting. Demographics targets someone for who they are, whereas interests are more about what they do, what they like, and what they care about. Here's how to set this up. What you're gonna do is you're gonna go back into your audience section and you're gonna scroll down. So it would be the same thing as a cold setup, but the one place we're gonna look at right now is this section down here where it says detailed targeting. And so when I click this pencil icon here, I can start typing things and start searching for different interests. So for this account right now, I'm running ads for a water sports company. So I can type in the word water sports right here, and I can see that a few different options comes up. So wakeboarding comes up as a interest. So I can click on that. And what would happen is if I ran these ads is it would show my ads to people who are of all genders within the age of 18 to 65 and speak English, and they have shown a previous interest in the sport of wakeboarding. And this can be super useful because now you're showing your ads to someone who you assume has a similar interest to what it is you're trying to sell. I can also narrow this further by clicking the define further section. So this adds essentially what's called an and statement. And so what I can do here is, let's say I want to target people who are into wakeboarding and they also are a high earner because what I'm selling is expensive. What I can do now is I can type in income here, scroll down and select household income top 10% of zip codes US. So what this does now is it targets the people who are the 10% top income earners in the country, as well as being into wakeboarding. If I were to add this as a demographic right under wakeboarding, it would have to be one or the other. So it would just kind of make your pool bigger. Whereas if I add it as an and must also match, then both have to be applied before your ad is shown to that person, making your audience a lot more narrow. And so keep that in mind when you're running ads. And you might think it's a good idea to add a lot of layers to your targeting, but every time you add one step further down your targeting like this, all you're doing as well is you're making your audience size smaller and smaller, making your ads harder to scale. So there is an advantage to using this, and that's the fact that you can show your ads to potentially a more relevant audience. However, keep in mind that every time you do this, you do reduce your audience size. So when should you try and use interest targeting? So you should use it when you're confident about your audience's hobbies, passions, and what they just like to do in general. However, back to my previous point, you should still be trying this once you've tried your broad targeting campaign first. So that's how interest targeting works. It can be a really good way to reach the people who you think are aligned with your offer. Now we're gonna move into some types of audiences where you're showing ads to people who have already interacted with your brand before. But before we do that, if you like this video so far, be sure to like and subscribe. That way you're updated on all my newest videos to come. So now for the next type of audience, we're gonna talk about website retargeting. This is when you show ads to people who have been to your website, whether they just checked out a page on your website or completed a purchase on your website. And because of the Facebook pixel, what's great is that you can use this data to build custom audiences for people who have been on your website before and taken various different actions on it. And so now let's say I wanna target a retargeting audience on this website right here for this water sports company. Here's how I would do that. I would go on my left panel right here and then go and click on audiences. From there, I can create an audience and I can create a custom audience. So I can click on that and my source would be a website one. So now I'm assuming that the Facebook pixel has been correctly installed, which it has on this website here. And what I can do is I can select my correct data set, which is this one right here, select an event. So let's say people who visited specific web pages, and select an audience retention. So the audience retention is a specific number of days. And what you're telling it here is you want to show your ads to a specific group of people who have been on a specific part of your website in the past X amount of days. So let's say I want to show my ads to people who have been on my website in the past 6 months. What I could do here is type in 180. That way this retargeting audience would be a group of people who have been to my website before in the past 6 months. Next, it's going to ask you as a filter what your URL contains. So if I'm targeting people who have been to this website in the past 6 months, what I want to do is grab the URL to this website and then paste it into here. And so what I'm doing in this step here is I'm telling Facebook, anyone who's been to this website website before in the past 180 days include those people in my custom audience. And then from there, it'll just ask you to name your audience. So I can just call this my website visitors 180. That way my naming conventioning is accurate, and click create audience. And so now I can see that that audience is created right here. The next thing we want to know how to do is how to attach that to my ad set. So in order to do that, what you want to do is go back to your campaigns, then select your ad set level. I'm going to go into my example ad set right here and click on edit, and you're going to scroll down to the audience section. And where it says custom audience inclusions, I want to click on the pencil right here and then search for website. And I can see that my website visitors 180 audience is here. So what I can do is click on that. And from now on, if I were to save this, my ads will only be shown to that custom audience I made, and therefore my ads will only show to people who have been to my website before. Keep in mind, within Facebook ads, you can also exclude audiences. So you can give an audience and tell Facebook, whatever you do not show my ads to this group of people. And this can be pretty useful. In a case like this, for example, if I go into my audiences right here, you can see that I also have an audience of people who have purchased a pass in the past 180 days across this website. And since this is not a repeat purchase they can make, it's a one-time purchase, then I don't want these people to see my ads because they already bought, right? So what I could do is I could target the people who have been to my website, however, exclude the people who have bought from my website. That way the ads are only showing to people who have been to the website and not bought a pass yet. And that's essentially what retargeting is going to do. It's going to follow your audience of people who have been to your website before and follow them around to make them take action the second time they go on your website. And so now you might be wondering, when should you use this? The answer is pretty much always. This is often going to be your warmest audience and the group of people who are the most likely to convert into either a lead or a sale out of all the targeting options you have. So you always want to be trying this one out. However, it comes with a small word of warning. You just have to remember that a retargeting audience is much smaller than a broad audience or an interest audience, for example. So usually if you're doing broad targeting, you'll often end up with an audience size of a couple million people plus, in some cases hundreds of millions of people, whereas on retargeting, usually your audience size is limited in some cases to only a few hundred or a few thousand people. So even though I recommend you use retargeting in every single one of your campaigns, I usually recommend as well that you only spend at most 10 to 20% of your total budget on this ad set. So that's how retargeting works. If someone's already been on your site, don't let them forget about you. Use remarketing and bring them back to your website. Okay, now let's talk about another warm type of audience, which is Facebook and Instagram engagement retargeting. So these are people who have previously engaged with either your Facebook page before, your Instagram account, or any previous ads that you've ran before. To set one of these up, what you want to do is go into your audiences section, click create audience, and click a custom audience. And what you're going to want to do is, if you want to create an Instagram engagement audience, for example, you want to have your Instagram account connected to your Facebook ad account, for example. Same thing goes for the page. You want to have everything connected, so make sure you do that first. But let's say I wanted to create a custom audience of people who engaged with this company's Instagram account in the past 180 days, then here's how I would do that. I would start by, instead of clicking my sources as a website like last time, I would go on meta sources right here and I would click on Instagram account and click next. And now I would select the correct Instagram account for this company, which is this one right here. And now I have a few different options under events. So I can select everyone who's engaged with this professional account, or anyone who's visited the professional account, or anyone who's engaged with a post or ad that's ran on this account, and a couple different options down here. But let's say I just want to target anyone who's engaged with this Instagram account before, then I would select this option right here. And like I mentioned before, I want to do that for the people who have done so in the past 180 days as my audience retention. So right here, I would type in 180. That way it's only the people who have engaged with the Instagram account in the past 6 months. From there, it's the same thing as last time. All I want to do is give this a good name. That way everything is organized within my account. So I can just call this IG Engagers 180. That way it's easy to remember, and click create audience. To attach this to my campaign, it's the same thing as last time. What I would do is go into my campaigns right here. From there, go into my ad sets. I'm going to select my example ad set right here, scroll down to the audience section, and where it says custom audience inclusions, what I want to do is click this pencil icon. I want to delete my website visitors right here, and instead I want to search up IG and select my IG Engagers 180 that I just created. And if I were to save this, these ads in this ad set are only going to show to people who have engaged with the Instagram account in the past 6 months. So now, when do you want to use this type of strategy? You want to use this when you want to show your ads to people who have already engaged with the content you've posted online. And this is usually a warm audience, just like website retargeting is. So most of the time, the traffic's not as warm as your website retargeting, but I always recommend you test this out as well. And it can be especially good for things like promoting a limited time offer, sharing testimonials or case studies, or running follow-up WhatsApp ad messages to people who need to be re-engaged the second time. time. Keep in mind, like retargeting, the audience size on one of these is a lot smaller than an interest audience or an open targeted ad set. So if you're gonna use this, make sure to keep your budget on the smaller end, kind of like the same thing as the website retargeting. 10 to 20% of your total ad spend should go into this. So if you wanna try both website retargeting and engagement retargeting, maybe start with 5% or 10% for both. That way the total for both is about 10 to 20% of your total account ad spend. And now for the final audience, I'm gonna talk about one of the most powerful audiences you can use on Facebook, and that's called a lookalike audience. So a lookalike audience is exactly what it sounds like. It's a group of people who look alike a specific action that has been taken on your website. So if you wanna build an audience of people who are similar to the people who purchased on your website, for example, you can build a lookalike audience for that goal. And this is possible because of the data that Facebook has. Essentially, it knows a lot of information about all of its users, and from there it can build these lookalike audiences, and they can be really good for scaling your ads. So here's how to set one of these up. So let's say I wanted to create a lookalike audience for people who purchased on this website. The first thing I would need before I build one of these is an audience of people who actually purchased on the website. So as you can see, I have that ready to go right here. What I would want to do is create an audience and select lookalike audience. The first thing it's going to ask you for is to select a data source. So I'm going to click on other sources right here and now type in purchase. And as I can see here, I can select my purchasers 180. So this is a group of people who purchased a pass in the past 180 days. And that is what I'm building my lookalike audience around. Next, it's asking me for an audience location. So I'm selling these passes to anyone within Canada or the US. So I can type those in. And now for the next part, it'll prompt you to select an audience size. And this part's important. So you'll see a bunch of different percentages from 0% all the way up to 10%. So let's say I kept these two tabs between 0 and 1%. What I would be creating here is called a 1% lookalike. So what this means is within Canada and the US, I'm telling Facebook to find the 1% of the total population that looks the most like the people who purchased a pass off of this website. Whereas if I take this and bring it all the way to 10%, then I'm at this point telling Facebook, find the top 10% of people who look the most similar to the people who bought off of my website. So as you can see, the estimated reach varies between these two, and this one should be about 10x the 1% one. So as I can see here, for the 10% audience, it's estimating a reach of about 31 million people, whereas down here, it's estimating a size of 3.1 million, which is 10 times smaller. You can also go in between. So let's say I wanted to build a lookalike audience of people who are between the 7% and the 2%, so the middle 5 pretty much, then I can use that as well. And what it allows me to also do is create more than one lookalike audience at once. So this tab right here, instead of creating one lookalike audience, I can, let's say, select 2. So I can create 2 audiences at the same time, where I can, let's say, have the first one, which is my 1 to 2%, and then my second one being the 2 to 10% lookalike. And so you can kind of play around with this and create all sorts of different types of lookalike audiences. But back to my example now, I'm just gonna stay to one lookalike audience build for this video. Now you might be wondering at this point, which one should you be using? Should you be using 1%, 2%, 10%, 5 to 7%? The answer is it depends. The 1% lookalike can be really powerful because it is the most targeted one, and it's the 1% of people who are the closest in similarity to people who purchased. However, it's also your smallest audience size, so this would be tougher to scale. Whereas if I brought this all the way up to 10%, now I'm showing ads to a maybe slightly less relevant audience. However, it's 10 times bigger, so if this works, my ad set would probably be a lot easier to scale and spend more money on while keeping my cost per result the same. So keep that in mind. Usually a smaller, more specific lookalike might result you in a better result, but at a lower volume, whereas a higher percentage lookalike might result in a slightly higher cost per action, but you can scale it more easily. The best thing to do, honestly, and if you have the money to do so, is to test all of them. So if you're unsure what you want to try, have a 1%, have a 10%, have a 2%, have a 3%, try every bracket, test all of them. Usually that's how you win in Facebook ads. It's by testing these things. The one thing I do have to say though as a word of warning is do not use these too early in your ad account, since these types of audiences are very data reliant. So let's say as an example, you set up a Facebook ads account yesterday, and since then you got 2 purchases and you want to create a lookalike audience. You're only giving Facebook at that point 2 different data points to go off of to create a lookalike audience. So chances are that the lookalike audience it builds around your purchase custom audience is not going to be very accurate. Whereas if you let your ads run for 3 months and you got, let's say, 1,000 purchases, now you have a much more precise data set to hand over to Facebook. And because of this, it's going to generate a lookalike audience that's a lot more accurate, and it's probably going to be a lot more similar to the people who actually did purchase on your website. Now to finish creating this, let's say I wanted to create a 1% audience lookalike, I can create audience right here. And once it's created, it's probably gonna auto-generate a name for it. So I renamed it here already. So I called mine Lookalike Canada US 1% purchasers 180, essentially meaning that right here is a 1% lookalike audience of people who purchased in the past 180 days and only the people who are in Canada and the US. The final step is if I wanted to add this to a campaign, what I would do is go into my campaigns now, click on my ad sets, go into my example ad set like before. I'm gonna scroll down to my audience section, and where it says this custom audience inclusion section right here, I wanna delete the Instagram engagers one I added previously and instead add my lookalike one, which is this one right here. And now if I were to run ads on this ad set, it would show my ads only to that lookalike 1% audience I built. So hopefully that's giving you a clear picture of what different audiences you can use within Facebook ads and when to use each one. If you'd like me to personally build your audiences for you, or if you just want me to manage your ads for you, feel free to click the link in the description below to book a call with me. And if you have any questions or feel as if I missed out a crucial type of audience which I did not talk about, be sure to drop that in the comments below. Other than that, I hope you got value out of this video, and I'll see you on the next one.